Hi, Team Six. So I'm sitting here in my kitchen with Jill Smiley, and we've just been discussing your recommendation. And I think what I think Jill does, as she'll speak to in a minute, I think she heartily agrees with the importance of bringing in families and children, and really likes the suggestions. We did watch your YouTube video. And I think she also has some questions, given that they already have a fairly robust family program, how what you're suggesting fits in with what's already on offer. So let me hand it over to Jill.
Hi. We do know that children who are exposed to symphonic classical music are the ones who do come later in life. If you're not exposed when you're young, it's pretty tough to get you involved. So this is a key demographic for us. And already we have 3 kids concerts that have sort of the thing that your video said. It has interaction. It has our conductor talking to the audience. It has a theatrical group. And it is fun and interactive, and kids jump in their seats and they get up and they get down type thing. We have our instrument petting zoo, which is a chance to play instruments. We have education concerts for a whole week in February, where we have about 7,000 kids who come to our concerts. We have our musicians go into schools and do talk to big groups and small groups and things like that. We have 2 musicians who go into preschools and do that sort of thing, outreach. We'd like to do more. We just can't fit it into our schedule, right? So I guess the questions that I have are, 12 specifically designed days for families. It just doesn't necessarily work for us. But what I can see is us being more involved in current outreach that's already happening. Are we hitting the right children's fairs and things like that? Can we be more of a presence there? But I do know that bringing families to non-kids concerts can be a bit problematic as well, because we have a lot of patrons who pay good money to come, and often find kids who are restless and talking a bit of a disturbance. And although we don't want to turn them away, we want to encourage a good experience. So certainly getting them to come to kids concerts, and we need more numbers there. I mean, we had 4 and we went down to 3 because we just couldn't get the audience. And we find that those sort of cycle through, right? People take their kids for a couple of years and that's it. So certainly doing outreach in more venues where there are kids. For example, we went to the Royals, Victoria Royals, which is our, I don't know if they're junior or whatever type hockey team. And we did our instrument petting zoo there and saw some good numbers, people, being exposed to the symphony product. And how do we do more of that, I think is the way to approach this. How do we take advantage of existing activities in the community to be a part of, instead of trying to invent our own? Because we just don't have the staff or the time or the resources to do that. So we do have a volunteer youth group who can take our instrument petting zoo, which is very popular. Kids like to touch the instruments and play the instruments, and if we tag that along with some incentive to come to one of our kids' concerts, we find a lot of people come back. So I think sort of exploring that idea, not necessarily creating something new, but trying to expose more people to what we're currently doing and doing more of what we're currently doing in the community would be the way to approach that.
Thanks. As you were speaking, I think I'm in this demographic, right, of parent, mother of young kids. And one thing that also seemed to be underlying this group's thinking was the shift from the concert as an event to the concert as an experience, kind of like Splash, right? That I would take my kids to Splash because I'm not worried that we're gonna have to leave 20 minutes in and it's going to be obvious or something like that. And do you have any general comments on that, like the sort of the symphony as sort of an experience where it's not sort of time-based, where you need to sit in your chair for X amount of time?
Sure, and that's our Concert for Kids program. I mean, I would not take a child to a symphony concert at all. I mean, I would take, unless they're die-hard lovers or musicians or playing that kind of piece and have already been exposed. But our Concert for Kids, they're an hour long. There's going to be movement. There's going to be a chance for them to call out to the the people on stage. There's going to be, I think of the concert that we're doing this year, Rascally Rhythm, who hides around in the stage, and the conductor points out and says, can you find Rhythm? I can't see him. And the kids look and they point and they say, he's over there, he's over there. And she gets them bouncing in their seats and clapping and things like that. That's the approach that we take to try to make it fun for kids, because I fully acknowledge that sometimes I nod off a bit in classical music concerts, and I'm not a kid, so to get a kid to a 2.5-hour concert doesn't work. But an hour where pre-concert they can play a game or do a craft or, try playing a violin or a trombone or the drums, and then to see it actually played where they can relate to it and are not just sitting. And that's one of the key things that we do. To try to get them involved in liking the experience. And then people who go to kids' concerts, they know that that's what they're going to experience. The kids are going to be jumping and yelling and talking, and that's fine. So it doesn't disrupt the regular concert goer, and it exposes kids to music, which is what we're trying to do.
Thanks. So interesting comments, team. I mean, I'll just follow up with my own thoughts on this. So, team, where I'm just in parent role now. As somebody who doesn't go, I didn't know that, right? So I think one of my motivators in not going is also fear of embarrassment, especially that my kids are not going to respond as they should. I didn't even know that there would be crafts before, or that this was an event. And I'm just wondering, do you think there's others like me out there?
Absolutely. And I think, how do I reach you? So I reach you through things that you're going to because your kids are going. Do I reach you at a market or a fair or a doctor's office or a something? And do I give you an incentive to come? To me, it's much easier to get people to come to an existing thing that we're doing than try to create a whole new level. And there's space. We've got the space. There's a huge market. But then again, you're a very specific market. We'll only have you for a couple of years, but you know people and they know people, and you'll make it. And one of the things we do notice is a lot of our subscribers to our kids program are grandparents with their kids. Symphony subscribers they just love those concerts because it's a different look at the symphony. It's a lot more casual and interactive.
Thank you. So, team, I think to summarize, yes, this does seem like a great clarification of the challenge. And speaking of families, and as Jill said, it is the young people. These are the people who, in their later life, will be symphony goers. It is important to reach them. And yet, she has some reservations about the specifics of your solution in terms of 12 days a year family activities. That it just doesn't seem feasible. Would that be correct?
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll see you online, and I look forward to what you think up for your next paper. Hi, Team 6. So you heard feedback from Jill, and basically it seems like great direction. Yes, families with children. However, this specific recommendation might be difficult to implement, and it might overlap with existing programming. So good clarification of the challenge, and let me give you a few comments around your process. So when I look at your process, first of all, fantastic job. When I look at your assessment of the situation, it's really thorough and really good. And I also want to commend this team for really really committing to these process experiments, and at least the visual one, sticking to it, as well as staying in the spirit of the experiment of this course and fully diverging. You did a really great job of that. Now, the question I would like to ask you in terms of on your paper is, what was the impact? So, going forward, would you continue, when you replicate some analogous processes in your own professional contexts, would you continue to diverge to this degree? As you did, you really embraced it? Or did you feel that added, did you find that added to the quality of your experience and your recommendation? Or could you have come to, let's say, the same clarification of the problem with less convergence? So reflect on that, please, and let me know. So you really did great job of diverging, which is always makes it harder because you consider more ideas and then you need to rein them in. So, and from that, you came to that really convergent, specific clarification of the problem around families. Great work. Good. Your BHAG crushed the IMAX. Yes. Okay. So good BHAG, good problem statement. All right. So now let's get to the. So I'm still on your. I have your. Sorry, my paperclip came out. Okay, so brainstorming board 2. So I hope you had fun. It looks like you had fun. All right. So in terms of the solutions and the alternatives, I just want to look at your PPCO in a little bit greater detail. So it seems like when I look at the one that you chose with family days, you did hit on many of the concerns that Jill in fact has around employee and staffing. How much would people actually pay to attend an event like that? So what I would encourage you to do, I do think your framing of the challenge is strong, and I would encourage you to go back and either consider how, based on Jill's feedback, you would revise this one, or how you would go back to your other alternatives and develop them. You know, one was linking it to educational programming. So whether that means the credited, you know, you had a very specific idea, but whether it's further linking to community programming, to education, you might want to pursue the link to education, whether or not you pursue the specific idea you put forward. And the other was the themed hotel. So then it was more, you know, and again, the idea, the underlying principle behind that seems to be appealing to tourists, right? So you want to get families, and I think you have 3 really good blocks. Do you kind of go further on the same vein that they're doing, which is the recommendation you put forward around family days, and you can see they're already doing a lot of that kind of programming? Do you want to double down in that direction? Do you want to reach out to tourists, and that's the idea that I see behind your hotel? Or do you want to link this further with education? So I'll look forward to seeing how you further transform your idea as you do the next iteration. In terms of the decision matrix, I would say that you're going to want to look at your criteria before you submit your assignment on Sunday. And so I'm concerned about overlap in your criteria. So minimal cost, builds upon existing initiatives, and small doable plans all seem to be pointing to the same thing. I'm not saying that they necessarily need to be collapsed into one criterion. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 1, I don't know. I'm just wondering if you're sort of at each of those, with each of those criteria, assessing something very similar, and you'll want to look at that. So what I'll be looking at in your paper that you'll submit on Sunday is each criteria assessing something distinct and important. Will not alienate the base, I think is good. Increases the reputation, good. But the one thing I do notice with your criteria is there's nothing about whether it will attract more families. So, or something about, you know, the number of times families will come, or the number of families who will come. So if you use only these criteria, you might have something that's really easy to implement that will not alienate the base, but actually doesn't, but you might end up choosing a solution that doesn't actually achieve the goal of attracting more families. So you'll want to think about what the criterion is around impact. Whether, are you trying to attract lots of families? Are you trying to attract a few families who will become core supporters? What's the end goal here? And what's the criterion associated with that? Hopefully that makes sense. So in all, team, I have no further process comments. Please do let me know if you have questions. Also, Jill is, of course, eager to see any revisions that you have. That said, your primary responsibility is to your education, not to the Victoria Symphony. So if you would like me to pass on your revised recommendation to Jill, just put a note at the top of the paper. I give you permission to pass this on to Jill. However, please feel no obligation to do so. This is about your learning experience. All right, I look forward to seeing what you come up with next, team.